Welcome into another edition of Trust the Process Live, brought to you by My New Philly. As always, I'm your host, James Hyde, with my guys, Mr. Five Digits, Max Coolish, and James Jackson, the young gentleman himself. Fellas, how is this week treating you so far?
Inching towards normalcy, one day at a time. So this week's been pretty good.
First show of July. Sports are back this month. Let's get it.
Let's do it.
Jesus Christ. First show
of July.
God. Tell me what time it is now. But, gentlemen, we're going to get right into it. But before we do, a little bit of COVID update, because this is now – we're moving on from some of the old issues, but now new issues seem to spring up in the forms of COVID and how that is going to affect not just the logistics, but the players. And this is the first week where we're really starting to hear the kind of concerns grow in the masses. And it's no longer just Davis Bertans deciding to sit out because of the ACL and whatever injury, whatever reasons Davis Bertans has. So even recently as today and yesterday, Nick Markakis, David Price, Victor Oladipo late last week. Joey Gallo tests positive today. Felix Hernandez decides he's going to opt out yesterday. And one of the most startling ones, Nick Markakis just decides to hold a press conference a couple hours after merely talking to Freddie Freeman on the phone and hearing how bad he sounds. He goes, okay, I don't want that. I got my bag. I'm not playing. So, I mean, guys, I know I'm going to be looking, but the three of us are going to be keeping you updated on just really how many players actually choose to sit out because of what we're dealing with. So actually that brings me to our first question, and it's been in the news a little bit. It made huge news because Mike Trout, a lot of people have called him the unmarketable face of baseball, which I hate just because the guy doesn't like to be in front of the media all the time. Doesn't mean he's not. We could be watching the greatest baseball player of all time, but I digress. He was in the news for saying that he is thinking about opting out of this baseball season. So that got us to thinking, if Mike Trout decides to opt out, that could cause a huge ripple effect. So our first question, JJ, I'm going to come to you first. Who is the tipping point player, like a Mike Trout? Who is the tipping point player for each league, if there is one? If they decide to sit out, everybody else would sit out.
I think in the three major sports, there's probably only two or three players that exist in each of those leagues, and Mike Trout is probably player number one for the MLB. For that reason, I don't think there's a player in the MLB that could cause the MLB to backtrack and to not play and to not restart the season. I think they're pretty gung-ho about that. The only two players that come into mind, I think the obvious one is LeBron James in the NBA, and then Moneybag Mahomes, who just got his big deal today because of how much money Mahomes just got and how much LeBron is worth to the Lakers, to the NBA, to basketball brands, that if they were to pull out, they may not be single-handedly the reason that the leagues don't decide to restart. But I think just as you said it, James, the ripple effect that they cause could be insurmountable, could leave the leagues with so little players, like so little inventory, that you can't put a product on the field, that you literally can't play because 45% of your league isn't here. Like, you can't house games that way. So I think a lot of players would look at people like LeBron James and Patrick Mahomes and say, it's not worth it for them. If it's not worth it for the most notable figures maybe in the world, let alone in sports in America, then it's not worth it for me to go out there and play either. So really, it comes down to LeBron James and Patrick Mahomes. For me, are really the only two guys I could see that will be a tipping point for their leagues, respectively. Right. No disrespect to Mike Trout. I just don't think the MLB is not built the way the NFL. You said it's not marketed the way the NFL and NBA is. MLB kind of markets, their players as a whole, right? They don't single out one person. The NBA markets LeBron James. The NFL markets Patrick Mahomes. If those two leave their sports go under. I think that's just how they're built. They like it that way.
Hey, man, nobody's taking Bryce off that diamond. But, Max, who, if there is one, who's the tipping point?
I think LeBron's probably the only one's worth a shot. But realistically, I don't really think anybody is, honestly. Like, I think maybe the way that I just understood the question, like, yeah, if LeBron's like, yeah, you know what, this season isn't for me, that's going to obviously cause a huge, major ripple effect in terms of how other players think. But I think if you're looking at it from, the organizer's point of view, like, if for whatever reason LeBron doesn't want to play, but the rest of the Lakers still want to go and try and chase the championship, the NBA is absolutely going to allow that. That's the thing. Same thing with Giannis with the Bucks, or Mike Trout with the Angels, or Bryce Harper, or John Carlos Stanton, or whoever it is. I don't think one player is enough in and of itself to single-handedly be a force that alters or knocks down the league.
Right, and I agree with you on that, Max. But imagine if LeBron James opts out of the season. How many Lakers do you think are staying? How many people on the Lakers do you think are staying after LeBron James? AD's going.
Exactly.
AD's going.
100% agree. 100% agree. And I think that like LeBron is maybe like he's more on the extreme. Like obviously, if LeBron's not going, the Lakers aren't going to have any business winning the title, right? But if you took someone in a similar position, maybe someone on a more meddling team, like hell, let's use the Sixers for example. What if Embiid decides that I don't feel comfortable doing this restart? Does that make the Sixers as a whole make that jump as a collective? Probably not.
Probably not.
It
You're
takes
right.
that
Probably not.
Collective unit as a team to opt out for it to really potentially impact the NBA or the MLB.
Right, and that answers go back to our question. Embiid is not a tipping point. I think that answers the question beautifully. Like, I think if you look at LeBron, Giannis, Kawhi, probably to me in the NBA are the only players that if they decided not to restart the season, that majority of their team follows. I think pretty much every other team, the biggest player go. I don't even think the Rockets. Like if James Harden decided not to play, I think Russell Westbrook still plays. And if Russell's still playing, I think majority of the Rockets go still play.
I agree with you, but I still think the Bucks still make that trip without him because I think the Bucks as a collective realize, because I think the Bucks as a collective realize that they're doing something that small market teams don't have the chance to do often, and they even with Giannis they're not title winners, but they're still probably better than whoever makes the 7 and 8 seed out east. And then
now we're having a different argument because if Giannis doesn't go with the Bucks are now should be filing for that 8th seed. Now their best player is Chris Middleton. Now they should be contending for that 8th seed.
I don't know. I just personally think that they would still make a go at it just because I don't know. They're such a good team as a whole, and yes, they rely on Giannis a lot, but I still feel like that they consider themselves a good enough team to cause serious damage without him. And then for the Clippers, I think the Clippers would do that too. They have some older guys that like Paul George isn't good for 82 games a year. You know what I mean? Like if he's healthy going into a potential playoff, I think he wants to go, and I think that's enough, for the Clippers to go. I think LeBron really is the only one that could really bring his whole team out of competition with him, honestly.
I think you guys actually swayed me into believing this is like a more subjective thing than one player. You know what I mean? So I would agree with Max that there's no true one person. I would disagree with your guys' statement earlier. If Joel Embiid decides to sit out, I think Ben's out, and I think therefore the Sixers are just done.
We know Ben and Joel play better without one another. I think if Joel Embiid sat, yes, it would be harder for the team as a whole to win, but I think Ben Simmons kind of looks at it with a side eye and is like, do I want Joel Embiid in there? Yes. Do I also play better when Joel Embiid's on the floor? Yes. I do know that those are both true. So I think that Ben Simmons gives it a go because of that second one. Look, I might be able to put this team on my back.
I would hope so. But then again, you got him liking those Instagram comments about the NBA pushing back the season. This, that,
baby.
I don't know. It's maybe case by case, maybe not. So we'll leave that up to you to decide. So James, you touched on this in your answer for the first question a little bit. Patrick Mahomes just got paid.
Money back home. Money back Mahomes.
Literally, I'm talking. The original numbers that came out were not correct. When we saw $450 million, all of our jaws hit the floor, and then we had to pick them up from even lower when the redaction came out, and it's $503 million. This dude just became worth $500 million over 11 years because he still has 1 year left.
Chill. It says a chill up my spine.
That's a $145 million insurance policy, the largest ever guaranteed to a player. Makes the contract that Kirk Cousins signs. Makes the Wentz deal look good. Like,
I mean, it makes for comparison, Russell Westbrook is on the highest contract in the NBA that he signed in 2017, and that's 5 years for like 208.5. That's nothing compared to this.
And that's the largest overall contract. LeBron's making the most year by year, and it's 33. Patrick got 50 M's a year.
More overall and yearly. Insane.
And guys, the little bit of a side byproduct of this is James, I think you brought this up before. Dak Prescott signed his franchise tender last week. He's got to be pretty upset right about now because
that market just reset on him. That market,
I'd be upset too.
There's not anything you can do about it.
Yeah, he probably would have gotten about $15 million more if he would have waited until Mahomes signed this deal. But hey, who cares?
That's business, baby. That's business, baby.
Max,
You're in
I'm coming to you first. Max, I'm coming to you first with this. Was making Mahomes the richest player ever, the biggest contract in professional sports history. Was that a smart move for the Chiefs in 2020?
See, it's a smart move for the Chiefs, right? But it's just not. It can't be a smart move for an NFL team, which is so weird. It's so I can't like. For, all intents and purposes, the Chiefs may have ultimately ended up saving money over the course of this contract. They probably will. It gets them arguably the best and probably the most valuable player in the league, all things considered, in terms of age, talent, situation, all those things. It gets them under their control for the next decade. They just won the Super Bowl with the guy. It seems like they can put anybody around him and Travis Kelce, and they'll get 10 to 11 wins, no problem, right? So great. They were never letting leave anyway. But in 5 years from now, $45 million is probably going to be, not the highest paid quarterback anymore in terms of, just chopping the numbers down annually. So I think it's a great move for the Chiefs. But we've seen in the NFL time and time again, one season can, I'm not saying this is going to happen to Patrick Mahomes, but, one season is all it takes for a guy to be on top of the world. And then all of a sudden, he's 2 years from that, he's a backup somewhere. And gone are the glory days. Look, I think Mahomes is too good for that. But just, we've seen it time and time again due to the NFL and football's unpredictable nature. It's just nothing is a guarantee. Brett Favre lifetime contract for the Packers. He played for, 2 or 3 teams after that. Three teams? I can't even remember. He played for so many teams after that. So exactly. Like Patrick Mahomes looks like a great deal now. And I think if you have to put your money on it, you'll probably be happy with this contract, however it plays out ultimately. But I think we're all probably in the same agreement that there's no way that this deal lasts until its end. There's no way it runs through its exact expiration date. It just feels impossible.
Well, to aid your point, Max, other than Brett Favre, Drew Bledsoe has signed a 10-year contract. Donovan McNabb, Dante Culpepper, and Michael Vick have all signed 10-year contracts. And if you run down that list, there's not a person who lived to the end of that contract. So it's not been done before that we see a quarterback see the end of a 10-year contract. Now, I think they all signed those contracts later in their careers than Patrick Mahomes did. And Patrick Mahomes might be the only one to have a Super Bowl under his belt already when he signs that 10-year deal. I might be fact-checked on that specifically, but
no, you're right. You're correct.
It's just in the terms of this is so unprecedented. But Patrick Mahomes is an unprecedented person. And if you look at what where the Chiefs have their money, and their core is very young. Travis Kelce is young. Tyreek Hill is young. Sammy Watkins is young. Who they have him surrounded with are young guys too. So they're in it for the long haul with this core, it seems, with this group at the offensive helm. So I think it's yet to be seen whether it's going to be smart for the Chiefs, because I think it's a combination of what he's done for you already and what you project for him to do in the next 5 to 10 years. Because you think about it, if Patrick Mahomes' career goes as the trajectory is it's supposed to, he's going to get that money from somebody. Somebody's going to pay Patrick Mahomes. And it's either going to be you or somebody else later. So why not take that guarantee or take that option out of the rest of the NFL's hands for whenever it is? If it's you got to look at the risk worth the reward. The risk is always there that a player gets hurt, but you only get rewarded with one Patrick Mahomes a generation, one of them. Like more don't come. So like
losing Mahomes, that's a fan base wrecking move. Like if you just let Mahomes walk, like say for example, obviously they would have extended him after next year.
No guarantee.
Even if they don't win a Super Bowl but are successful, he leaves. Like
no guarantee in that. Lock him in now. And And James, you touched on it perfectly. Not only is this the largest contract in sports history, but for me, it's the smartest contract I've ever seen a player sign in sports history. Not only for this long, you mentioned the $140 million injury guarantee, highest in NFL history. The previous was Jared Goff with 110. His base salary, his annual salary is also linked to the salary cap, which we know, especially in football, goes up every single year. Just a fluid contract. His baseline is $503 million. It could go up based on how the salary cap goes up and how the Chiefs use their salary cap money. So, like Patrick Mahomes,
that will be the biggest thing that comes out of all this. We're going to see
that's the trend-setting move. That's the trend-setting move. Every big contract is a trend-setting move. That's the trend-setting move because we'll never be able to get to year 7, year 8, and be like, wow, Patrick Mahomes actually isn't even making that much per year anymore. Like he's annual now. He's average now. He's always going to be towards the top. He will always be at the top of the QB market. It's so smart. I've never seen it been done before. And like for guys like Dak Prescott, for guys like Deshaun Watson, Lamar Jackson, who have contract negotiations coming up soon, take note because Patrick Mahomes just made a huge trend-setting move with basically like purchasing stake in the Kansas City Chiefs now.
And hire his agent.
Whatever him and Richard Sherman did, just beautiful.
Just hire that guy. All I'll say is thank God that man's in the AFC. So that's JJ, you brought up one of the players that leads me into another question. Deshaun Watson. There's also a former MVP out there, reigning MVP out there, whose name is Lamar Jackson, who is going to be looking at a payday very soon. Who's the next guy to get the bag? Who is the next guy to be able to say that I am a percentage of what this team, like I am a large percent of what this team spends every year?
I mean, the obvious one is the two you just named, right? The two who are next in line. Carson Wentz would have been in that debate too, but he got his deal done with the Eagles early. So the next one to get the bag has got to be Deshaun Watson, I think. I also think the Texans are in a little better of a spot to give them that money than the Ravens do. The Ravens don't have dudes yet, but the Ravens have a lot of people on their team who, after contracts are done, are going to want money. They're going to want bags. Marlon Humphrey, why am I forgetting?
Orlando Brown, my God.
Orlando Brown. Why am I forgetting Marcus Peters? I'm sorry. But Marcus Peters is also going to want a bag. So they have dues to worry about. The Texans pretty much traded away the guy next who's going to be making the biggest bag. So they got one guy really to worry about if they take care of him, who, if he even wants to re-sign with the Texans. Because the way they're treating him right now, this bag could come from another team if he doesn't want to stay in Houston. I don't think anyone would blame him. So I think Deshaun Watson is the next guy. Carson Wentz would have been 100% in that conversation with that if the Eagles didn't get his deal done soon. I think he was next for a payday too. Objectively speaking, don't take it too far, Max. You only get like one nice Eagles comment a year, and that was it right there. So like, don't
that was a great deal. That's objective.
Might be giving some of Watson's money to Tunsil now, though. But Max, who's the guy to get the bag next?
So, I mean, it's basically a coin flip between Lamar Jackson and Watson. Logic would point towards Deshaun Watson. I think that's where I'll go ultimately. But just, JJ already made all the points about it, so I won't say too up on it. If push comes to shove, is in a better position to go to their team and say, yo, give me my money right now or I'm not playing. Is it the guy who just won MVP or is it Deshaun Watson? Look, I know that it's unlikely. Lamar Jackson seems, doesn't really seem like he's that kind of guy. I don't know exactly what that means. It doesn't seem like he's so enveloped in money then that he does, he would consider not playing. But I think if push comes to shove, I think that he has much more of a footing to stand on demanding a big payday instantly after seeing what Mahomes just did compared to Deshaun Watson.
So I think it's interesting neither of you guys went with Dak.
Why would we?
I mean, yeah. The guy, hey, he's in a contract.
He's going to get – Dak Prescott is going to get a contract.
He's going to get a contract. All right,
he's going to bag for himself. He publicly said, I deserve to get paid like Patrick Mahomes, like Deshaun Watson. And then Patrick Mahomes signed a 10-year deal. He dug that ditch for himself. Now all 32 teams are looking at you like you're not worth anything near that. He lost leverage when Patrick Mahomes got that deal. He put himself in that tier, and he's not. So he's gonna get paid.
So a little follow up on that: do either of those two guys get a contract richer than 503?
No chance. Not
Lamar Jackson. I wouldn't be shocked if Lamar Jackson got a deal like that. I wouldn't be shocked.
In terms of years or money?
Both.
Yeah.
Both.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be shocked. That's a trend-setting move. And the Ravens, the Chiefs said, look, we're looking at a generational talent. So why don't we just keep the generational talent for the generation? Like, why just keep the whole thing? And the Ravens are looking next to him like, yo, we got the same thing. Who's kind of on the same path as Patrick Mahomes was.
Lamar for 10 years is a lot, man.
It's a lot. And I know there's the running aspect and the running way of his game. But
look at Cam Newton, bro.
Look, he's smarter than Cam Newton. Cam Newton dives and flips over the place.
Cam Newton is definitely not what you want your QB trying to preserve himself.
He's smarter than RG3 was. He's smarter than Mike Vick was. He runs like Russell Wilson, a very tactical and skilled runner. Now, they do have design run plays for him. I think as he ages, those go down. But when he drops back to pass, he's a very smart in how he runs and how he evades defenders. And I think it's the same point. I go back to the Mahomes point. Is the reward worth the risk? For a lot of players, it's not worth that risk. For Deshaun Watson, for Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson, I believe it's worth the risk.
For the sake of my viewing the NFL, I really hope Lamar Jackson lasts that long.
I can see Lamar getting sniffing. I don't think the Ravens bite on 10 years on him.
Yeah, what I will say for Lamar is I think he gets close to the average annual value. Definitely not the length.
So
I think it's smarter for him too.
So he gets 50 M's.
Yeah, I would say that's to me, pay him the same amount per year, but 10 years for Lamar is a little bit too much. 5, 6, cool, we're good.
I mean, what do I know? My team signed a 43-year-old quarterback for 2 years. So, man, what do I know?
I'm cheering for Kirk Cousins.
Just going into his prime.
Whatever. All right. Count your blessings. But we're gonna move on. JJ, I'm gonna come right back to you, my man. It came out. We talked about this a little bit last week in the phrases that the NBA was supposedly allowing players to wear on the back of their uniforms instead of their last name. Great idea and thought. Now the logistics have come out, and they have actually given the players a comprehensive list of phrases that they can choose from to put on the back of their jerseys. So I want to ask you, what are your thoughts on the list of phrases that they gave to the players? Well,
one, I think it was a pretty smart retroactive move on the part of the NBA. I'm not sure if this was already in the talks between, what Chris Paul and Adam Silver were going back and forth with trying to solidify this concept. But one of the NBA's, brightest young stars, and John Morant, kind of got himself in a little bit of hot water with what he said he wanted to put on the back of his jersey. And I think that really heightened the NBA's caution about just letting players, say whatever they want. I think it was something necessary that kind of need to happen to shed light on something because we don't want our players in hot water either. So I'm glad no one has the ability to do that or to get themselves in trouble. But when I look at the list, I think the list is nice. It's a lot of concise phrases because you can't put, a whole saying or a whole quote on the back of a jersey. It's still got to be, kind of legible in the nameplate format. But also what I really hope is players aren't confined and restricted to that list. I understand that, phrases and sayings have to be approved, but I'm hoping that players are able to go outside that list, kind of maybe submit, a suggestion or a phrase that they'd like to put on the back. NFL has a whole committee, and hopefully, can approve it or reject it and say, either try again or stick to the list. But I hope players are, having, it's silent. Because some players might want to put other names. Some players might want to put G. Floyd. Some players might want to put T. Rice. Like, some players might want to put actual people. And I just hope the NBA is receptive to that. Players might have their own phrase that are near to their heart. Just make sure that players are able to do that.
Max.
So I actually read, and I'm not totally sure one way or another if the NBA is totally shutting down, allowing requests for stuff not on the list provided. But I can definitively say they're not going to be using other names
Okay.
Mostly they said it was just going to be two getting like most of the time it's like getting approval from the family and all that stuff. Like, what does it do bringing this person's memory back up to the family? Do they want them to be commercialized? So the NBA as a whole, I remember reading that they just said no other names. I hope that they'll keep the suggestion box suggestion box open for other phrases or other things to put on the back. But I definitely think we're definitely not going to be seeing other names on there. In terms of the list itself, I'll say this: they didn't have any bad misses. Like there wasn't anything that they put on. Like there wasn't anything missing that should have been on there that they missed. But admittedly, a lot of the stuff, if you look through the list, it's like, who is going to choose most of these? It feels like it almost would have been a stronger message if it was like 5 or less, black line. You know what I mean? Just five of them, not this list of 25 that they sent out. Like, I don't want to like accuse the NBA of throwing this lifeline out there, but some of them feel like cop outy in a way, like see us, love us, ally. You know what I mean? Ally. Like, vote Black Lives Matter. One of a couple things as opposed to like, hey, go down this list of 30 and pick and choose. I don't know. That's just me.
And I do want to say that I like that they have a Spanish saying in there too.
Yep, si se puede. Yep, that was very good.
I like that the NBA incorporated that as well.
So JJ, you made a very good point about Ja Morant. I guess I know where you stand on this. Should the players be allowed to choose their own sayings? I'm going to say you say no on that one.
I'm going to say I won't say no. I just think it has to be approved by somebody. If they want to go and go off the list, it's just got to be submitted, and it's got to be approved. But I think neither extreme should happen. The players, shouldn't be refined to the list, but the NBA shouldn't just allow them to, put whatever on the back of their jersey. It's got to be some regulation. But if a player really thinks it's something that's good and the NBA approves it, maybe like other players might want to put that too if it's a really good saying. So if they approve it, add it to the list or let them know these what other players are doing. You know what I mean? Like people inspire each other. Sayings inspire each other. Right. So.
Max, is that where you say kind of like a comfy middle? Like obviously Ja Morant showcased you can't really let a 20-year-old have complete autonomy.
Yeah, I mean that would have never got through, right? There's no way in hell that would have ever made it to the actual light of day. Do I think that if the NBA let every single player choose, if they just said, hey, mail us in, an empty slip with what you want on the back of your jersey, do I think that would have worked? Probably not. That would have been a nightmare.
Too many.
Exactly. That would have been a nightmare to deal with. They had to do something in terms of like setting guidelines, but I do hope that they, like we've said, like I really hope that they're they made it clear, like, hey, if you have something that you think is both neutral enough to not overly offend anybody, but strong enough to still make a statement, then let us know because we want to give you guys all the best available options. So that's what I'm hoping happened, but it definitely seems like if you have to go to one extreme or the other, you have to default to the NBA because you can't have Ja Morant put in F12 or like Spencer Dinwiddie. He kind of went like third eye and was going to do the 26 trillion, which is like, come on, I felt like that was kind of sort of getting away from the whole.
That's not the point, right? That's not the point. You're bringing
exactly. It does play a part into it, but that's not at the core of it. That's a societal problem. That's not race related. The fact that our country is in a shit ton of debt.
Yeah, like that has nothing to do with that. I mean, to be honest, putting that kind of takes attention away from the movement. Exactly. You're right.
That's how I think too.
Nothing to do with the movement we're talking about. I don't want to know about the U.S. debt right now.
Because yes, like the fact that the country's 26 trillion in debt, of course, that affects people that are in lesser privileged communities or situations. That also affects every other single person in that same country, and that's not what we're focusing on. We're focusing on the people who have it worse off than the average person.
Talk to him, Max.
Very well said. So I got one more on that topic for you guys. Mike Scott said the jerseys in the list and that the NBA gave the players was a big miss. Are you agreeing or disagreeing with him? Is that like do we agree with Mike Scott? Are we in?
I don't think it's a big miss. I think they missed, but I think to the NBA's defense, if this list was curated just by NBA executives and administrators and stuff, I don't think they can account for what every player in the NBA is going to want to see. You know what I mean? Just so I think they should put out the original list and then say, if you have a suggestion, whatever measure you want to take to let us know. But I think Mike Scott's point proves that the NBA needs to listen to its players a little bit and not just say, like, here's all that you can say. Because you're not going to make everybody happy. There's going to be some people who think it's a miss. But allow Mike Scott to be like, okay, if you think we missed, give us a better suggestion. Like, give us something that's good. But I don't want to say worthy, but it's got to fall within guidelines. You got to remember, like, we can't offend people.
Right.
We're not here to cuddle people. We're not here to be insensitive, but we can't outwardly offend people. Like, we can't do that.
Don't just complain. Give us more appropriate.
Exactly. And to Max's point about Spencer Dinwiddie and the $26 million, that's getting to political. We can't be political. We can't be offensive. And like, the NBA is following very strict guidelines, to which really they don't even set. Like, they have guidelines that they have to follow for being like this big public corporation, this big sports entity in America. Like, they can't just say whatever. They can't do whatever. So
Exactly. And honestly, like, love Mike Scott, but like, dude is even kind of a self-admitted loudmouth. Like, honestly, I think he's totally wrong on this one. I think the NBA did pretty much as well as it could have in terms of sticking to guidelines that are not stepping over the boundaries either which way, in terms of up, down, left, right, backwards.
He's the only one I heard complain about it. He's the only one I heard complain about it.
And it seems like
we had somebody
I might be wrong on this, but I think I remember reading that Chris Paul said that the players, to some extent, at least the Players Association had input
Probably.
in terms of the phrases, the phrases approved and everything. So, look, I got to say, like, yeah, if you think it's a big miss, like, to me, it just seems like Mike Scott was one of those guys who wanted, the Photoshops to come to life, because that's just not practical. Like, as funny as it would be, as controversial as statement feasible to do. So.
He was on a call with Jalen Brown, I think was when he and Jalen Brown both said that it was a quote unquote big miss. But I definitely agree. It's one of those things where we touched on it last week. Like, don't just complain, offer a solution. You know what I mean? Like, if you don't see something you don't see something you want to have, submit it. You know what I mean? Like, if it doesn't get approved, the NBA still has has its responsibilities to its shareholders, to its sponsors, to the FCC. For what can go on national
guidelines that they have to follow if they want to stay in business.
So, you know what I mean? Don't just pop off. Let's submit some good ones that we haven't thought about, and hopefully we can get Mike Scott some good stuff on the back of his jersey.
And one other quick thing. He's got to remember, like, if you cross the line, this is going to affect your bottom line. Your bottom line's already kind of up in the air as it is, right? Like, you're already, by doing the social justice thing, there's already going to be a group of people you're going to alienate because they don't want to see their sports get political. But then when you take the boundaries off of it, you're going to start crossing the line into people that didn't want to find a problem with this, but you're just going to cross the line into that at some places if you don't put guidelines or boundaries.
And the problem with, you're exactly right, Max. Your problem with statements like F12R is you're going to offend some people who were on this side with us. Like, there are some people who are completely with this movement, are completely understanding of the problem and want to fix it, but still have family members that are police force and great family members and are upstanding police enforcement and law enforcement. And you're going to offend them by doing that. And that's a person who, one, we didn't need to offend, and who didn't deserve to get offended. Like, they didn't deserve that. So
exactly.
I think I'm with you on this one, Max. Like, the NBA has a responsibility to kind of take this responsibility. If we're going to allow them to do that, we have to set the parameters for it.
So that was our main event, and moving very quick segue into halftime. We want to take this time to open the floor up to you guys, the audience. If you guys have any phrases that you think that would be very appropriate for the back of the NBA jerseys that maybe the NBA hasn't thought of, it's not like we're going to get it in front of the NBA's eyes. We don't have that kind of pull here. I don't have Adam Silver on speed dial. But if you want to share them with us, we would love to hear new opinions, just as opposed to that just 30 list of 30 things that the NBA put out. So drop them below in the comment section, either whether you're watching on Facebook or YouTube. We'll also have something up on Twitter and Instagram where if you want to share these phrases with us, we'd love to. Hopefully we can get them out there and have more people to see it. Hey, you know what? Mike Scott's pretty big on Instagram around the region, so maybe we give him something to take to the league. You know what I mean? Maybe that'd be a good thing to do.
Yeah, there we go.
Got him. We got you, Mike.
Hey, Mike. Hey, we're part of the hive still. You know what I mean? We can agree to disagree. We're civil here. All right. We're all cool. So that was halftime. So again, drop them in the comments below. But we're gonna move into second half, which is rapid fire today, guys. This is fun.
I'll get it this time. I'll get it this time. Max was the one. Max was the one.
I'm not worried about you. I'm worried about Max. Okay.
I was gonna say Max the one went over last time.
I'm not worried about you.
I don't know what you're talking about.
This first one we're going to start off is probably my favorite. Golly, the Washington Redskins. I'm going to preface this in saying Dan Snyder, all the way back to 2013, 2014, used the word never to describe when he would consider changing the name of the Washington football team.
And he said put it in all caps.
Never. In 2000, and he doubled down in 2014. But now, look where we are. This is the strength of the movement. You know what I mean? This is how change happens. You put enough pressure in the right places, and even people as evil as Dan Snyder can feel that pressure and be forced into something. So, JJ, I'm coming to you. What are we renaming the Redskins and the Indians? Because the Indians have actually taken a good step in self kind of policing and opening up the conversation to a name change. And the one that hasn't been talked about, guys, the Blackhawks in hockey in Chicago. What are we renaming them? What's the new name?
Well, how about, but my quickest and first inclination or first instinct is to, why don't we remove the derogatory term and put the actual term? Like, if we want to celebrate Native American heritage and we want to have a football team to represent the Native American team, why not just name it an actual Native American tribe? Why don't we actually put the colors it represents, the actual name, and so people see this name, and when they look up Redskins, they don't see that it means a derogatory term. They look up an actual Native American tribe and actually learn a little bit about actual American history. And I think that's a great opportunity. All three of these teams that are Native American themed and Native American based have an opportunity to do. Like, I mean, you could do it maybe without changing the logo, without changing the huge makeup of the team, and you right a wrong by not only a proper celebration, but hopefully it leads to some education of some people as well. So I think that's my first indication, or my first instinct is to get rid of the derogatory term and put in the actual term in there, put the actual Native American tribe in there.
Love the education aspect of that. You know what I mean?
We all need it.
American history, which they probably have not gotten. Max, what are we renaming these teams?
If it was just the Redskins, I wish I could just say name something stupid because it's the Redskins and I hate the Redskins. But in general, I think that's probably the best approach to take, is because, when I was a kid, honestly, when you're a kid, you're naive, but obviously never growing up, you don't really think of it in those negative connotations. To me, it was always hey, Native Americans were renowned for being, tough. They worked as a unit. They were fearsome. That's what you want your football team to be. You want them to be fearless. And you want them to work as a team, and you want them to ultimately come out with a victory and, in a game or, in those times and, ahead in life one way or another. So I think it would just make the most sense to maybe say, hey, what Native American tribe was, the most inhabitive of what was, the Cleveland, Ohio area before we colonized it. What was the tribe that was living in, the Metro DC DMV area before we colonized it, So I think that's the easiest step to take in terms of, not having to go through the pains and the process of a full rebrand and changing logos and history and all that stuff. Yeah, you're going to have to change the name, but you can keep most of the roots intact without those still being a continuous part of the negative connotation the name brings. Because, if we're looking at this in a vacuum here, a lot of these teams were named, 50, 60 years ago when, frankly, this wasn't, an issue. So on one hand, that does need to be addressed, but on the other hand, everything that's happened in the time since shouldn't just be devalued and thrown away because people who were, in a different generational mindset of us, were the ones who dubbed these, originally. We shouldn't have to scrub them of history and punish them for being named after that. They didn't, the players and the staff of current day, they had no say in this. They shouldn't be, it shouldn't be a big deal to change names, but it shouldn't be such a complicated process where you're needing to go to like fan votes or you're blatantly avoiding the issue.
Mhm.
I actually saw one online that I really liked. Since they're in the DC area, you can keep the same color scheme, just remove the headdress and call them the Red Tails and honor the famed Tuskegee Airmen, the famously all African American unit of the armed forces. Like I love that idea. I think it's
absolutely amazing.
I really love that idea, but then in the creeping thought in just the back of my mind, if there's anybody out there to ruin a decision like this, it's Dan Snyder. You know what I mean? It just kind of had just crept into
I mean, with any of it, I think there's a reason that he was so adamant about, like, we'll never change the name again. Like, why? If it's truly offensive, like, why is it you didn't name the Redskins? Like, you weren't the person who named this team. Like, why is it, if it's so offensive to a people, like, why are you so against changing it? Because the fear of a rebrand, probably, Max. The fear of, like, I gotta redo this thing. It costs money to get new jerseys and new colors and new this and that, and I changed how the stadium looks. I gotta maybe get new sponsors because of it. Yeah.
Well, speaking of the sponsors, hopefully this is this is the end of the line. 40% of the Redskins ownership minority stake. I mean, obviously they're not equivalent to Dan Snyder in terms of pure percentages in the organization, but as a group,
40% of your company leaves. You don't got a company. You can't.
Yeah, exactly.
60%.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, FedEx, who has naming rights to the field, told them to change their name. Nike pulled all Washington football team merchandise down.
The pressure's there. They can't not do it.
Yeah, the dollar speaks. And if you at home, if your kids are not around and you really want to see what type of guy the owner of the Washington football team is, just look up Dan Snyder legal problems, and that'll probably tell you where this whole course. It's not good.
It's a good starting point.
Yeah, that'll tell you where we are in this.
That's a good deep dive. If you're looking to do a little deep dive on something.
Yeah.
By the way, that was question 1 of rapid fire, which was beautifully done by all 3 of us.
Yes.
Yeah. You know what? That was one of the ones we can let go. This one is real short, real sweet.
That was the open-ended question at the end of the test that we chose to do first, so we wouldn't get.
Good point. Very good point.
Exactly. Very good point. That was always the best. But this next one is going to be real short and sweet, just like the time it took this man to eat 75 hot dogs. Gentlemen, is Joey Chestnut, and I'd say 75, beating his world record last year at 74. Is Joey Chestnut the greatest professional we've ever seen?
Yes, because his records are unobtainable. His records literally can only be obtained by him. In other sports, records get broken, but there's someone in 5 to 10 years who come across who could break it. You're not going to be able to show me another man who can eat 75 hot dogs in 10 minutes. That shouldn't be humanly possible. Like, Joey Chestnut needs to go at the top of the Mount Rushmore of athletes, needs to be celebrated.
Max, Joey Chestnut, best athlete, best professional we've ever seen.
I mean, it truly is hard to argue against this guy, because the crazy thing is right, when it comes to like other individual sports, like you play golf, you have a good shot, you're like, damn, if I played golf all day every day for my whole life, I could be as good as Tiger was. If I played tennis all day every day for my entire life, I could be as good as
skills, right? Acquired skills.
You know what? I eat a lot, and I know I could never eat 75 hot dogs in 10 minutes. No chance. No chance. For context, I did 30 wings against 2 friends of mine. Actually, the night of the Myles Garrett, Mason Rudolph helmet incident on that night, so it's always a good connection. It took me 26 minutes to eat 30 wings, and I felt disgusting after it. Okay? He ate 75 hot dogs in 10 minutes. That is insane. That is insane. Like, everyone else on that tour trains as much as him, probably does more or less the same routines. Nobody comes close to touching.
You're going to be able to do that. You can't do that. You can't expect.
Second place is like 55, which is still insane. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
but the fact that, like, if you're dedicated to that, that's your craft, you're doing all the sports science stuff, that man is still a whole tier above everybody else in that sport.
All right, so we figured it out. Joey Chestnut, the best professional we have ever seen.
Put him on the Mount Rushmore, man.
Dude,
Mount Rushmore professionals. That man, honestly, I'm proud. I'm proud to call Joey Chestnut for like a part of the whatever.
He's an American hero.
I'm gonna cut that out in post. But he's, you know what? He's a national hero, Max. Yes, he is. Moving on. Oh, boy. Which NFL player would you sign? We touched on this a little bit before. Which NFL player right now are you signing to a 10-year deal? 10 years, this guy's locked in. Is there anybody that you can think of, JJ?
If I had to choose one, you're going to look at me crazy. Kyler Murray. If I had to choose one,
Okay.
I'm going Kyler Murray.
I can dig that.
Because I think with the team he's about to get surrounded with, a lot of young talent, and kind of the makeup of what he has, kind of a huge arm, good legs. I know he's very short, for a quarterback. But if I had to choose one, a guy who looks like he's got the makeup to kind of go on a Mahomes-like path, a Mahomes-esque path, I think Kyler Murray, man. I think Kyler Murray could do it. And age is a huge factor too, because not just talent, age and injury. And injury is huge.
I can dig it. 10 years with Kyler Murray. Max, 10-year deal. Who else in the NFL are you locking up for 10 years?
So this one's tough because, right, instantly your mind does jump to QB, right? That's just the position where, like, hey, give that guy a ton of money for a long time. But I'm actually going to go on the other side, which is maybe questionable, maybe not. I'm going to say pick your poison with either one of the two Bosa brothers, because in my mind, I think that how young they are, I think you can lock down a guaranteed top 5 defensive end in either one of them in the league and have that for 10 years straight. I think that's a nice luxury to have.
I wouldn't go Joey after the shoulder injuries, but Nick Bosa is a great one.
I was more inclined to lean towards Nick after last year too. I'm just like, I think that Joey Bosa was more impressive than Nick Bosa, but he just got hurt so early. People already kind of forget that, I feel like.
Well, I'm telling you, somebody who you're sleeping on, Daniil Hunter, man. Most sacks by age 25 in NFL history.
Both of you were going DN. You were kind of right earlier in the show, Max, when you said, I don't know if I can give any football player 10 years, but a DN, man, you get hit a lot.
Give me 10 years of the most pressures in the NFL. 10 years. Give me it. Let's go. Gold jacket. Moving on.
But he didn't lead the league in sacks. Who led the league in sacks? He didn't lead the league in sacks, though. Who led the league in sacks? Shaq Barrett. Go Bucks, baby.
Barrett did.
I thought it was Chandler Jones.
Nope. Shaq Barrett beat him by 2 sacks.
It was Shaq Barrett.
Chandler Jones is the ageless wonder, by the way. That man keeps fucking chugging. Moving on.
Might be Bill Belichick's only like big blunders, Chandler Jones.
Yeah. Oh, this is a good one right here. Max, I'm going to come to you first. So it's come out that the teams that are not making the NBA playoffs want to have their own bubble. Now, I would be all in for this if it didn't come out that the bubble in Orlando cost $150 million. But if by chance in some parallel universe this happened, they got their own bubble, are you watching the losers bracket?
You know what? I watch it over a game that's happening with, real championship implications? No. Is the NBA smart enough to realize that people won't watch it over real games? Hell yeah. So the NBA is going to put them on. Those are going to be like your noon games to just kind of easy into the day. A nice, game that doesn't really require your full intense watching. Some nice Knicks Bulls to start you off at 12:30 right after your lunch break.
For what?
Are you serious? Why not?
Because
think about it like this.
It's not fair.
It's not fair to those teams because a lot of those teams have young guys and they're missing out on so many games.
Because they stink. Boo-hoo. Freaking boo-hoo. You stink. Like, there's not enough time. There's not enough time. You suck. I'm sorry you don't make this one. Like, you got to just accept it that you don't make this one. Like, and it's really guys like Trae Young who are really good on a really sucky team. I'm sorry, but your team sucks. This is not your time. I wouldn't tune in to a Hawks-Knicks game regularly. I'm for damn sure not going to do it now. Like, for what means to an end. For what means to an end. And it's not like bad teams are playing with good teams. So it's not like we get a chance. If I get the Hawks, they're patched up with the Bucks. So, yeah, the Hawks stink, but I get to watch Giannis, and they're a good team and might be exciting. I'm watching 2 trash teams. I'm watching 2 teams that are going to be kicking the ball around and banging it off each other's heads. Why? For what end? I'm watching a professional NIT tournament at this point. Why?
Ooh, that's a deep cut.
Oh, that's a deep cut. All I'm going to say is this. Whatever team, I don't know if this is even going to be determined, but whatever team wins the loser bracket bubble, they are officially going to be the team to watch out for next year. So that is going to be fun to watch.
Whatever, dude.
Yeah.
Watch out for the Knicks next year.
Team to watch out. They're now the 8th worst team in the NBA. They're still in the lottery.
When you said Bulls-Knicks at noon, I immediately wanted to go for a walk and just turn off my TV.
That's the first Christmas Day game that nobody watches is Bulls-Knicks at noon.
Oh,
Everyone watches.
That's terrible. Golly. All right, we did a pretty good job at the end of rapid fire there. We had to take a little bit of time to dish on Dan Snyder there as the first question. But getting the tap outs. Who's tapping out first? All right.
For my tap out tonight, I'm actually going to present you two with a question. So the MLS restart is happening this week. So I want to ask, are you guys going to join me on the Union bandwagon, or are we all going to pick our own team for the show's sake?
I'm with the Union, man. I'm with the Union.
Okay, cool. Let's do it.
Dupe it up. Are you kidding me, man?
That's what I thought. That's what I thought. I just had to make sure.
You can count me in for the Sons of Ben for however long until I get to watch.
And I worked at Rally House, and my last year, if the Union didn't switch jerseys, I was copping me a Union jersey. But they switched jerseys right before I left, so the new ones didn't come in yet. I want to buy an old one.
Cool, perfect. And in case you're unaware, this MLS thing only lasts for like a month. So it lasts into the first week of August. So by the time it's wrapping up, that's going to be the very beginning of the NBA. So don't worry. You're not going to
you gotta hope there is.
Like, I'm not going to watch that. Don't worry about it. There's going to be
You gotta hope there is an MLS is back tournament. You gotta hope they do the tournament. A whole team just pulled out today.
They're gonna. I think still. But yeah, I did see that.
Does the Union still is Drake still in goal? They still got Bedoya?
Yeah. Yes to both. I'm pretty sure.
I'm in. Sold me right there with those two. Let's go.
So I'm tapping out on the Union. We're gonna win the MLS this year. Let's do it.
My person, the part of the Union I know is Kevin Durant.
Love that. All right, so Max just tapped us out for the whole crew right there. So again, thank you for joining us on Trust the Process Live. Catch us next week. And again, if you remember, throw some comments down below about those phrases that you might have thought of that we in the NBA might not have. Let us know. We'd love to read those, and we'll see you next week. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Trust the Process Live, brought to you by My New Philly, where something is always new and everything's always Philly, baby.
Always Philly, baby.
Yes, sir.
Let's go, Union.